name is Susan Meyerson, and I volunteer on the Commission for Disabilities. I'm going to be Paul's voice today, but Paul Remy is our chairperson, and he's the one who did everything, practically by himself. I will read directly from his 4 pages of notes. My name is Paul Remy, chairperson of the Sharon Commission on Disabilities. Welcome to the Commission on Disability Awareness Day. Due to my speech impairment, Susan Meyerson is my voice today. Our commission members are Susan Meyerson, Gila Aronson, Lois Diamond, Jana Katz, Peter Melvin, and Jessica Sanford. Shani Minkovich is in the process of joining the commission. Some of our members were unable to be here today. Today, our commission is celebrating the 25th anniversary of the American for Disabilities Act, which gave people with disabilities their civil rights. Some members of the commission are wearing their Happy 25th Anniversary Americans with Disability Act t-shirts, which I am wearing, which I had to wear a long sleeve shirt under because it was too cold. The beautiful image on the shirt is from the Bena School's inclusion mural, which is permanently on display at Memorial Beach in Sharon. Three of them, one after each speaker, will be raffled off. If you don't already have a raffle ticket, which are free, you can get one at the Commission of Disabilities table right over there where you enter. And you can also purchase the t-shirts for $15. Proceeds will help the commission on accessibility projects. Today's event would not be possible if it weren't for the Disability Awareness Day Subcommittee. I want to thank Lois Diamond, Susan Meyerson, Gila Aronson, and Jana Katz, who were on the subcommittee during the last 6 months for their dedicated service and hard work. I also want to thank the 250th Anniversary Committee for Sharon, the Sharon Advocate, and Sharon Community Television for helping us to advertise this event. And thank you, Isaac, from SCTV, who is here to film our guest speakers and organization representatives. We have 15 organizations with us today, including Easter Seals, Solutions for Accessibility, Family Autism Center, HESCO Elder Services, and the Perkins School for the Blind, and many more. We hope you will find information about services and products that may help you, your relatives, and your friends. We are also fortunate to have 3 inspiring speakers. Our first speaker is Selectman J.J. McGrath. He gave a compassionate and heartfelt speech about his nephew who has a disability and others with disability at the Bena School's inclusion mural unveiling at Memorial Beach in the spring of 2014. J.J. McGrath. Good, because I can't do this.
How are you?
Okay. Trying.
I don't know if I really need this. I have such a big mouth.
I do too.
Can you hear me well? Yeah. Thank you. Hey, Chuck. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, I want to thank you for allowing me to be here today. It's an honor. This is something that is near and dear to my heart. And it's kind of perplexing when I see many things that we could have done over the many years for people with disabilities that we didn't do, not just nationwide, but right here in the town of Sharon. And I always wondered why. I was a police officer here in Sharon for almost 30 years and went through the ranks to deputy chief. And I was always very vigilant about handicap parking and things of that nature, because I was always very sensitive to the needs and all the different problems that face people with disabilities. But I noticed not many other people seem to have that same type of passion that I had. Now, I understand passion, and I understand that many times you don't truly understand or have the sensitivity to a particular issue unless it truly does affect you in some personal way. That's sort of human nature. And I came to understand that after time, is that even though I was very passionate about those things, that some people didn't really seem to have a lot of concern about it. And I'll explain to you where my passion came from in a few minutes. But one of my pet peeves, I guess, for many years, serving in the Marine Corps, the Air Force, then I was with the Sheriff's Department, and then a police officer for many years. And over those years, I would hear people described as being heroic. Bobby Orr, or Carl Yastrzemski, or Larry Bird, or the Olympic gold hockey team. And as much as I understood the enthusiasm and the joy of people when they saw these incredible feats of athleticism, to me, those weren't heroes. That's not heroic. That's greatness. They're to be admired for their skills, and that's wonderful, and I celebrated like everybody else celebrated. But when we describe those things as being heroic, I had to disagree, because my definition of heroism is at a higher standard. Heroism to me means much more than being a gifted athlete, or being a celebrity who happens to be very gifted with music, or a movie star, someone who's on the big screen, the silver screen all the time. Those people are great, they're talented, but they're not heroes. And there's definitions, I guess, of a hero can be different. But the one that I see when I look it up on now Wikipedia, no longer the old dictionary, is pretty much the same one that I had in mind. Someone who has to face obstacles, almost insurmountable obstacles, to complete a mission, and they do so with undaunting and unrelenting courage. That's someone who is a hero to me. And I've seen such heroic acts over my years growing up and serving in the different branches of the military and serving on the police department. Not all soldiers are heroes. All of them I feel are courageous just by the mere fact that they put on that uniform and take the risks they take every single day to protect our nation, to keep us free. Not all police officers are heroic. Again, I think all are courageous in order to take on such a profession where you know that you may not come home at the end of the day, or you may not come home whole at the end of the day. And that goes with firefighters and pararescue and many other professions. But I have seen in all of those professions heroic acts. But there's a whole nother class of citizens who, on a daily basis, many meet that standard of heroism. And unless you've seen it, you may not know that that is the truth. And unless you've experienced it, and again, in a personal type way, you may not understand what that truth is. So I will tell you this, a story. And I spoke of it somewhat briefly when we were down at Lake Massapog looking at that beautiful mural. And I told a story about my nephew. And my nephew is Chris Cosman, my sister's boy. And back around 1983, when he came into this world, he was a beautiful young man and looked completely healthy, and we were all overjoyed. And my sister at the time was married, and this was her first child, and of course it was a huge celebration. Within a few years, unfortunately, they noticed there was a problem, and they found that he was eventually diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And that's a real nightmare for a parent to hear, because that means, at that time and still today, there's no cure for that disease. It breaks down the muscles little by little by little, and eventually it attacks those major muscles, and eventually the prognosis is one that means that you're not going to live. And it's a very hard thing for a parent to hear. It's an extremely difficult thing for a child to go through. I saw this very young, vibrant man, at the time just a boy, lose his ability to walk, starting around age 3 or 4, and by the time he was 8, he was in a wheelchair. My sister was very fortunate. She had an entire family of loving siblings and grandparents and everybody who immediately said, "We're here, we'll do whatever we can to support you." And they did. Everybody stepped up to the plate. Mm-hmm. As things go, sometimes, unfortunately, she happened to also face a divorce, and she became a single parent raising a child with muscular dystrophy. And this child, over the years, completely amazed me in so many ways. And this, I guess, is where I get my passion from, and I've spoken before about my sensitivity to so many issues facing people who are disabled, is that regardless of the fact that he was being robbed of his mobility, he continued to face every single day with unbelievable courage and optimism and hope, and even more than that. And I'll give you kind of a short story just to demonstrate that, of how incredible this young man is today, because I'm happy to say he's still with us. He's beaten all the odds. He's now 32 years old. But on one particular occasion, two of my brothers had him out to a restaurant. And they took him, he was in a wheelchair, and they took him out of the van and they started to bring him up the ramp, and somebody forgot to strap him in. So halfway up the ramp, of course, they hit a crack, because there had to be one there, because that's the way things always go. It's Murphy's Law. And he came out, face front, boom, into the cement, right, literally his face into the cement walkway going up the ramp. And of course, there was blood, and my brothers, of course, were horrified. Somebody forgot to strap him in. And the first words out of my nephew's mouth were, "Don't worry, I'm all right." Not, "Oh my God, I'm hurt, I'm bleeding," no crying. This is when he was a young man. The first words out of his mouth, because he was more concerned about his two uncles feeling bad about what had just happened, was he completely forgot about his pain, and he said, "Don't worry, I'm all right." And of course, they were still shaken, and they felt terrible and horrible, and then he insisted that they have their meal anyways. So they brushed him off, and they cleaned him up, and they went inside, and they had the meal. And he had to have been in pain. He also went through, a few years later, he had to have a rod put into his spine. And he went through so many surgeries, I can't even remember how many, and the ups and downs of having muscular dystrophy. And my sister, every single day, fought and fought and fought to make sure he stayed in the public school system. She wanted to make sure that he had as much as a normal experience as anyone could have being in that situation. And she was an absolute tiger. She would not stop fighting for every right she knew he deserved, but sometimes not usually available. And we, as uncles, when we wanted to get him out and have as much fun as we possibly could, and we talked about this last time, and I've talked to Paul about this before, is that just wanted to have a normal life. Just wanted to enjoy the things every single person, quote, able-bodied people, enjoy. And it was so difficult. Whether we were going into a restaurant, whether we were going to a wrestling match, wherever we went, we had to face obstacles. Places were not accessible, or just barely accessible. Or we'd go in and we had to disrupt many people for him to be in a restaurant at a certain table. And people would look uncomfortable that he was there because of the way that he may have looked, that he had to have oxygen every now and then, or that we had to feed him by hand because he couldn't feed himself anymore, because little by little, the mobility became less and less. And now today, even though he's 32 years of age, he can only use a couple of fingers, that's it, and he is pretty much, except for the gift of an angel, which is his cousin and a few other people who are taking care of him right now, he pretty much gets out every now and then, but a lot of times he's inside just watching films and TV and doing the things that interest him, and he's on the computer. But again, after all this time, and all of the discomfort, and all of the challenges he's faced, he's still there. He still has a quality of life, he's still enjoying himself, and he still makes fun of me when I go to see him. So he has this great sense of humor. He either jokes about my hairline or something else. This kid is incredible. You walk in the door and you see him. He's a grown man. He's gone through all of this, and he's inspiring me. He's making me feel good about myself. That is truly amazing, and to me, that is the definition of heroism. That, to me, is the guy I want to look up to. That's the guy that I want to emulate. That's the person who I want to look at and say, hey, look, if this guy can do this, if he has been able to overcome these challenges, and do so in this way with such inspiration for others and motivation for others and living a good life and finding humor in life every day, what excuse do I have not to enjoy every single day of my life and take nothing for granted? That's heroism. Many of you out there with disabilities, and I don't even like that word anymore because you keep on changing the definition, meaning that at one time people with physical disabilities were called crippled. That was a long time ago, but that's what they were called. And when they finally figured out that that was a word that was somewhat demeaning and basically set people up for failure, thinking that they were broken, they changed it, and they changed it to the word handicap. And they still use the word handicap, but again, they pretty much have changed it now to disabled, even though you still have handicap placards and everything. And hey guys and girls, it's your fault because you keep on meeting the challenges and you keep on showing us that you're not disabled at all. You may have physical challenges, you may have mental challenges, but you keep on doing things that blow everybody else away. You do things that able-bodied people wouldn't even consider taking on. A blind man climbing Mount Everest. Are you kidding me? Soldiers who lose limbs or have brain injuries and then somehow they rehab back to the point that not only can they be contributing to society in a meaningful way, but some of them have gone back into the armed forces. Some of them have even gone back into combat. This is amazing. Those are the people that we should be looking up to as heroes. But in the same way, that person who doesn't climb Mount Everest, but has maybe a severe disability, and their mission is to simply be able to brush their teeth in the morning, and that becomes the obstacle that they have to overcome, is to find a way to do it, and they do. Are they not just as heroic as that person who climbed Mount Everest? I say absolutely. And they are just as much an inspiration. Those are my heroes. Some of you here have done that and do that every single day, and you face your challenges, whether you're a victim of stroke, whether you've had a motor vehicle accident, had a spinal cord injury, whether you've suffered cerebral palsy, whether you've had any of these many, many unfortunate things that happen in life. It's part of life, they happen. And it's sad, but what makes it great are the people who have the courage to face those challenges and inspire the rest of us, inspire the world. That's you, all of you, and I am very, very honored to be among you. I will always fight for you, whether I was a selectman or not a selectman. I would still be out there advocating for you, and I'm going to continue to advocate for you and all of the other people who, in my opinion, are the true heroes here in the United States of America and across the world are you people. And I thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
You're wonderful. Okay. Hi. You can't top that speech. And I can say from that, without reading Paul's words, I'll use my words, but a lot of that rang so true because Paul, with his adversity and what he has done, it amazes me and inspires me. And when I come home from our meetings, all I can think of is that he's amazing. And I come home with a great big smile on my face because I'm proud to be involved in this, but it is amazing. And if you stop and you see, like Mr. McGrath said, what these people who have to face these adversities day in and day out have to go through, they are heroes. And I really can say that's so the truth. Anyhow, to go on as Paul's voice, thank you, Selectman J.J. McGrath, for that wonderful and heartfelt speech. The commission also wants to thank you and your fellow selectmen, Joe Roach and William Heighton, for granting the commission a waiver for the cost of the ballroom. They and other elected town officials, as well as department heads, are also working with the commission to make the beautiful town of Sharon accessible to people of all ages with disabilities. Last year, the commission and town officials finally got the MBTA to build a ramp to make the Sharon train station accessible for wheelchair and scooter users. Dr. Sidney Rosenthal, chairperson of the town's Sharon's Commission on Disability for 17 years, made it his primary objective to get the train station to comply with the ADA regulations. He died in 2011, 3 years before his goal became a reality. And I will add that Paul was relentless in getting this finished, and we did it. Thanks, Paul. Dr. Rosenthal's son, Paul, and grandson, Ryan, have the same compassion for helping people with disabilities and helped the commission to set up for this event. Sid's other grandson, Noah, could not be here today. Paul, Ryan, and Noah were very instrumental in helping the commission to organize our 2014 Bark in the Park fundraiser. The commission wants to thank them again for their help. Well, at 2 o'clock, my friend Faith Carter is giving a speech about Camp Jabberwocky. Before her speech, you might want to watch Amy Mullins' 20-minute TED Talk on the monitor. Amy Mullins has 2 prosthetic legs, which allowed her to run in the 1996 Summer Olympics. She is also an actress and inspiring speaker. Amy gives a magnificent and uplifting TED Talk about people with disabilities and adversity. The commission wants to thank Jerry Starowski, who works at the commission's community center, for setting the monitor up, and Mara Paul for helping us to get the ballroom. Okay, now I guess you guys might want to watch the TED Talk, and then we will continue after that.
I'd like to share with you a discovery that I made a few months ago while writing an article for Italian Wired. I always keep my thesaurus handy whenever I'm writing anything, but I'd already finished editing the piece, and I realized that I had never once in my life looked up the word disabled to see what I'd find. Let me read you the entry. Disabled, adjective. Crippled, helpless. Useless, wrecked. Stalled, maimed, wounded. Mangled, lame, mutilated. Run down, worn out. Weakened, impotent. Castrated, paralyzed, handicapped, senile, decrepit, laid up, done for, done in, cracked up, counted out. See also hurt, useless, and weak. Antonyms: healthy, strong, capable. I was reading this list out loud to a friend, and at first was laughing. It was so ludicrous. But I had just gotten past mangled, and my voice broke, and I had to stop and collect myself from the emotional shock and impact that the assault from these words unleashed. You know, and of course, this is my raggedy old thesaurus, so I'm thinking this must be an ancient print date, right? But in fact, the print date was the early 1980s, when I would have been starting primary school and forming an understanding of myself outside the family unit and as related to the other kids in the world around me. And needless to say, thank God I wasn't using a thesaurus back then. I mean, from this entry, it would seem that I was born into a world that perceived someone like me to have nothing positive whatsoever going for them. When in fact today, I'm celebrated for the opportunities and adventures my life have procured. So I immediately went to look up the 2009 online edition, expecting to find a revision worth noting. Here's the updated version of this entry. Unfortunately, it's not much better. I find the last 2 words under near antonyms particularly unsettling: whole and wholesome. So it's not just about the words. It's what we believe about people when we name them with these words. It's about the values behind the words and how we construct those values. Our language affects our thinking and how we view the world and how we view other people. In fact, many ancient societies, including the Greeks and the Romans, believed that to utter a curse verbally was so powerful because to say the thing out loud brought it into existence. So what reality do we want to call into existence? A person who is limited or a person who's empowered? By casually doing something as simple as naming a person a child, we might be putting lids and casting shadows on their power. Wouldn't we want to open doors for them instead? One such person who opened doors for me was my childhood doctor at the A.I. DuPont Institute in Wilmington, Delaware. His name is Dr. Pizzutillo. An Italian-American. His name apparently was too difficult for most Americans to pronounce, so he went by Dr. P. And Dr. P always wore really colorful bow ties and had the very perfect disposition to work with children. I loved almost everything about my time spent at this hospital, with the exception of my physical therapy sessions. I had to do what seemed like innumerable repetitions of exercises with these thick, elastic bands, different colors, to help build up my leg muscles. And I hated these bands more than anything. I hated them, had names for them, I hated them. And, I was already bargaining as a 5-year-old child with Dr. P to try to get out of doing these exercises, unsuccessfully, of course. And one day, he came in to my session, exhausted and unforgiving these sessions. And he said to me, "Wow, Amy, you are such a strong and powerful little girl. I think you're going to break one of those bands. When you do break it, I'm going to give you $100 bucks." Now, of course, this was a simple ploy on Dr. P's part to get me to do the exercises I didn't want to do before the prospect of being the richest 5-year-old in the second floor ward. But what he effectively did for me was reshape an awful daily occurrence into a new and promising experience for me. And I have to wonder today to what extent his vision and his declaration of me as a strong and powerful little girl shaped my own view of myself as an inherently strong, powerful, and athletic person well into the future. This is an example of how adults in positions of power can ignite the power of a child. But in the previous instances of those thesaurus entries, our language isn't allowing us to evolve into the reality that we would all want. The possibility of an individual to see themselves as capable. Our language hasn't caught up with the changes in our society, many of which have been brought about by technology. Certainly from a medical standpoint, my legs, laser surgery for vision impairment, titanium knees and hip replacements for aging bodies that are allowing people to more fully engage with their abilities and move beyond the limits that nature has imposed on them. Not to mention social networking platforms. It allows people to self-identify, to claim their own descriptions of themselves so they can go align with global groups of their own choosing. So perhaps technology is revealing more clearly to us now what has always been a truth, that everyone has something rare and powerful to offer our society, and that the human ability to adapt is our greatest asset. The human ability to adapt is an interesting thing because people have continually wanted to talk to me about overcoming adversity. And I'm going to make an admission, this phrase never sat right with me, and I always felt uneasy trying to answer people's questions about it, and I think I'm starting to figure out why. Implicit in this phrase of overcoming adversity is the idea that success or happiness is about emerging on the other side of a challenging experience unscathed or unmarked by the experience. As if my successes in life have come about from an ability to sidestep or circumnavigate the presumed pitfalls of a life with prosthetics or what other people perceive as my disability. But in fact, we are changed. We are marked, of course, by a challenge, whether physically, emotionally, or both. And I'm going to suggest that this is a good thing. Adversity isn't an obstacle that we need to get around in order to resume living our life. It's part of our life. And I tend to think of it like my shadow. Sometimes I see a lot of it, sometimes there's very little, but it's always with me. Now, certainly, I'm not trying to diminish the impact, the weight of a person's struggle. There is adversity and challenge in life, and it's all very real and relative to every single person. But the question isn't whether or not you're going to meet adversity, but how you're going to meet it. So our responsibility is not simply shielding those we care for from adversity, but preparing them to meet it well. And we do a disservice to our kids when we make them feel that they're not equipped to adapt. There's an important difference and distinction between the objective medical fact of my being an amputee and the subjective societal opinion of whether or not I'm disabled. And truthfully, the only real and consistent disability I've had to confront is the world ever thinking that I could be described by those definitions. In our desire to protect those we care about by giving them the cold, hard truth about their medical prognosis, or indeed a prognosis on the expected quality of their life, we have to make sure that we don't put the first brick in a wall that will actually disable someone. Perhaps the existing model of only looking at what is broken in you and how do we fix it serves to be more disabling to the individual than the pathology itself. By not treating the wholeness of a person, by not acknowledging their potency, we are creating another ill on top of whatever natural struggle they might have. We are effectively grading someone's worth to our community. So we need to see through the pathology and into the range of human capability. And most importantly, there's a partnership between those perceived deficiencies and our greatest creative ability. So it's not about devaluing or negating these more trying times as something we want to avoid or sweep under the rug, but instead to find those opportunities wrapped in the adversity. So maybe the idea I want to put out there is not so much overcoming adversity as it is opening ourselves up to it, embracing it, grappling with it, to use a wrestling term, maybe even dancing with it. And perhaps if we see adversity as natural, consistent, and useful, we're less burdened by the presence of it. This year we celebrate the 200th birthday of Charles Darwin, and it was 150 years ago when writing about evolution that Darwin illustrated, I think, a truth about the human character. To paraphrase, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor is it the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. Conflict is the genesis of creation. From Darwin's work, amongst others, we can recognize that the human ability to survive and flourish is driven by the struggle of the human spirit through conflict into transformation. So again, transformation, adaptation is our greatest human skill. And perhaps, until we're tested, we don't know what we're made of. Maybe that's what adversity gives us, a sense of self, a sense of our own power. So We can give ourselves a gift. We can reimagine adversity as something more than just tough times. Maybe we can see it as change. Adversity is just change that we haven't adapted ourselves to yet. I think the greatest adversity that we've created for ourselves is this idea of normalcy. Like, who's normal? There's no normal. There's common, there's typical, there's no normal. And would you want to meet that poor beige person if they existed? I don't think so. If we can change this paradigm from one of achieving normalcy to one of possibility or potency, to be even a little bit more dangerous, we can release the power of so many more children and invite them to engage their rare and valuable abilities with the community. Anthropologists tell us that the one thing we as humans have always required of our community members is to be of use, to be able to contribute. There's evidence that Neanderthals, 60,000 years ago, carried their elderly and those with serious physical injury. And perhaps it's because the life experience of survival of these people proved of value to the community. They didn't view these people as broken and useless. They were seen as rare and valuable. A few years ago, I was in a food market in the town where I grew up, in that red zone in northeastern Pennsylvania. And I was standing over a bushel of tomatoes. It was summertime, I had shorts on. I hear this guy, his voice behind me say, "Well, if it isn't Amy Mullins." And I turn around, and it's this older man, I have no idea who he is. And I said, "I'm sorry, sir, have we met? I don't remember meeting you." He said, "Well, you wouldn't remember meeting me. I mean, when we met, I was delivering you from your mother's womb." Oh, that guy. And of course, actually, it did click. This man was Dr. Keene, a man that I had only known about through my mother's stories of that day. Because, of course, typical fashion, I arrived late for my birthday by 2 weeks. And so my mother's prenatal physician had gone on vacation. So the man who delivered me was a complete stranger to my parents. And because I was born without vestibular bones and had feet turned in and a few toes in this foot and a few toes in that, he had to be the bearer, the stranger had to be the bearer of bad news. He said to me, "I had to give this prognosis to your parents that you would never walk and you would never have the kind of mobility that other kids have or any kind of life of independence, and you've been making a liar out of me ever since." The extraordinary thing is that he said he had saved newspaper clippings throughout my whole childhood, whether winning a second grade spelling bee, marching with the Girl Scouts, the Halloween parade, winning my college scholarship, or any of my sports victories. And he was using it and integrating it into teaching resident students, med students from Hahnemann Medical School and Hershey Medical School. And he called this part of the course the X Factor. There's the potential of the human will. No prognosis can account for how powerful this could be as a determinant in the quality of someone's life. And Dr. King went on to tell me that, he said, "In my experience, unless repeatedly told otherwise, and even if given a modicum of support, if left to their own devices, a child will achieve." See, Dr. Keene made that shift in thinking. He understood that there's a difference between the medical condition and what someone might do with it. And there's been a shift in my thinking over time, in that if you had asked me at 15 years old if I would have traded prosthetics for flesh and bone legs, I wouldn't have hesitated for a second. I aspired to that kind of normalcy back then. But if you ask me today, I'm not so sure. And it's because of the experiences I've had with them, not in spite of the experiences I've had with them. And perhaps this shift in me has happened because I've been exposed to more people who have opened doors for me than those who have put lids and cast shadows on me. See, all you really need is one person to show you the epiphany of your own power, and you're off. If you can hand somebody the key to their own power, the human spirit is so receptive. If you can do that and open a door for someone at a crucial moment, you are educating them in the best sense. You're teaching them to open doors for themselves. In fact, the exact meaning of the word educate comes from the root word educe. It means to bring forth what is within, to bring out potential. So again, which potential do we want to bring out? There was a case study done in 1960s Britain when they were moving from grammar schools to comprehensive schools. It's called the streaming trials. We call it tracking here in the States. It's separating students from A, B, C, D, and so on. And the A students get the tougher curriculum, the best teachers, etc. Well, they took over a 3-month period, D-level students, gave them A's, told them they were A's, told them they were bright, and at the end of this 3-month period, they were performing at A level. And of course, the heartbreaking flip side of this study is that they took the A students and told them they were D's. And that's what happened at the end of that 3-month period. Those who were still around in school, besides the people who had dropped out. This is a crucial part of this case study, was that the teachers were duped too. The teachers didn't know a switch had been made. They were simply told, these are the A students, these are the D students, and that's how they went about teaching them and treating them. So I think that the only true disability is a crushed spirit. A spirit that's been crushed doesn't have hope, it doesn't see beauty, it no longer has our natural childlike curiosity and our innate ability to imagine. If instead we can bolster a human spirit to keep hope, to see beauty in themselves and others, to be curious and imaginative, then we are truly using our power well. When a spirit has those qualities, we are able to create new realities and new ways of being. I'd like to leave you with a poem by a 14th century Persian poet named Hafiz, and my friend Jacques d'Amboise told me about. And the poem is called The God Who Only Knows 4 Words. Every child has known God, not the God of names, not the God of don'ts, but the God who only knows 4 words and keeps repeating them, saying, come, dance with me. Come, dance with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me introduce and I'm speaking for Paul, as you know. Let me introduce my friend, Faith Carter. We met 30 years ago at Camp Jabberwocky, located on Martha's Vineyard, a special camp for people with disabilities. We both love Camp Jabberwocky and admired its founder, Mrs. Helen Lamb. Before Faith's speech, I would like to briefly talk about Mrs. Lamb. She was an actress in England and became a speech pathologist so she could treat children with speech impairments acquired by war injuries during World War II. She immigrated to America in early 1950s with her 3 children, shortly after her husband had died from TB. Her speech pathologist background took her to a small rehabilitation clinic in Fall River, where she treated students with cerebral palsy, including myself. Mrs. Lamb realized that the students at the clinic had nothing to do during the summer except watch television. On a beautiful day in 1952, while enjoying the beach at Martha's Vineyard with her children, Mrs. Lamb, AKA Hellcat, you guys called her Hellcat, I guess, okay, envisioned establishing a summer camp for the students at the clinic. At the time, the medical community in the United States thought such a camp would be detrimental to people with disabilities. She was appalled at such thinking and brought 6 students from the clinic to Martha's Vineyard the following summer and started her camp. For the first time in their lives, they enjoyed summer activities such as swimming, boating, horseback riding. In addition, it gave well-deserved parents a respite from all that they had to do. Faith will tell you some stories about Hellcat and why Camp Jabberwocky means so much to us.
Paul would like me to tell you some stories about Hellcat and camp, and he's already touched on a lot of things that make Hellcat wonderful. How she took a bad situation after her husband died and moved to an entire new country and opened up entire new worlds to kids who wouldn't have had that otherwise. And how she started a summer camp where kids could do things that society had told them they would never do. Go horseback riding, go swimming in the ocean, paddle a canoe, draw a beautiful piece of artwork. So he's already told you most of that. And so what I'm going to do now is tell you some personal stories about Hellcat that I have experienced myself. And there are a couple of stories that I have that are Paul's favorites. So I will tell 2 of those. And if he laughs at me, that's okay. But first, I think I should tell you how Hellcat came to be a part of my life. My parents started a support group for parents of children who have disabilities when I was very young, because there wasn't a support group in the area, and my parents thought there should be. So they started one, and they needed a speaker for one of the meetings. And they found this speech-language pathologist in Fall River. And the night that she came to speak, she brought along an 8mm short movie about the camp. And there were pictures of campers who were crawling over seashells so that they could get into the water at the ocean, and pictures of campers up on horseback. And my mom told me the other day that a lot of the parents weren't ready for that kind of thing, but they were very interested in how they could open up those experiences for me. And this camp particularly is an invite-only kind of camp. And when you go, or at least when you went when I started, you had to be interviewed by Hellcat herself. Did you have to be interviewed? So when I was very young, my dad put me in the car and said, we're going to meet this lady who runs this camp. And I kept saying in the car on the way there, how long till we get there? How long till we get there? Are we almost there yet? And I was pretty much driving him crazy. So he gave me a piece of gum, and he said, by the time the flavor comes out of this gum, we will be there. So I chewed like mad. And eventually we got there. And I had brought my walker, and I had brought 3 toys. I had brought a Barbie doll, a thing of silly putty, and a slinky. And while my dad and Hellcat were talking, they had high tea, because she was very British. So they had finger sandwiches and cups of tea, and I thought that was pretty funny. And while they were doing their high tea thing, I was playing quietly. And finally, Hellcat got down on the floor with me. And she said, do you like to share your toys? And I said, sure, which one do you want? And she said, no, not with me, with people you don't know. Would you like to share your toys? I said, sure, why not? She said, do you go to school? I said, sure. She said, what's your favorite subject? I said, I like reading because I can do that all by myself. And she said, okay. And then she noticed I was chewing gum. And that did not make her happy one bit. And she said, proper young ladies do not chew gum. So I took the gum out of my mouth and I handed it to my father, whose hand was like this. And he held the gum for the rest of the afternoon while she finished talking to me. And when we left, I was so upset. I said, I'm never going to be invited to that camp with the funny name because she doesn't like it that I chew gum. But the following spring, I got a letter saying, we would like you to come. And I was very excited, but I had never been away from home before. So I went, and I taped pictures of my parents and my sister up on the wall. And I brought my teddy bear and my flashlight. And Hellcat used to do these things called cabin checks at night, where every half an hour or so, she would come around to the cabins and see if anybody needed anything. And at one point, she caught me with my head under the pillow and my flashlight on. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm a little bit afraid of the dark, so I have my flashlight. Well, that wasn't gonna fly. So she turned on all the lights. I mean, we're talking all the lights. And everybody in my cabin woke up. And she started kicking my bunk bed. And she said, what is this? I said, you're kicking my bed. She said, that's right. And then she shut the bathroom door and she started pounding on the bathroom door. And she said, what's this? I said, that's the bathroom door. She said, that's right. And then she went over to the shelf where our boxes, where our clothes were kept. And she started pulling them out. What's this? What's this? What's this? And those are my boxes. She said, that's right. Then she went over and she shut off all the lights. And she started kicking my bed. And she said, what's that? And I said, you're kicking my bed. She said, that's right. Then she went over to the bathroom and she pounded on the bathroom door. She said, what's that? That's the bathroom door. She said, that's right. And she walked over to the boxes where all our clothes were kept and she started opening them. What's this? What's this? What's this? Those are the boxes where my clothes are kept. She said, that's right. She turned on all the lights again. She said, there's nothing in the darkness that isn't already there in the light. So give me that flashlight and go to sleep. And she took my flashlight. And she tried to take my teddy bear, but I wouldn't let her. And I didn't get my flashlight back till the end of camp, but that's okay. So that's my Afraid of the Dark story. That's Paul's favorite, so I had to add that in there. Do you have a question? If you do, that's okay. No? Okay, then I'll continue. We've talked a little bit about some of the classes that we take at camp. Camp is a place where we do things. It's not just a place where we sit. The only rule at camp is that you can't do nothing. You must do something. And so everybody does things they never thought they could do, and more. And there are your typical camp classes, arts and crafts, swimming, things like that. But one of the classes that we have been able to take for the last few years is a writer's workshop. And as you know, Paul is an excellent writer. So he has gone to the writer's workshop since its inception, and I have also gone with him and a small group of other campers. We're hand-selected to go because it's a long afternoon. And this woman named Nancy, she always has this ritual where we meet outside because of all the wheelchairs and such things. And she has this ritual where she always cleanses our writing space so that the words can flow to us and then through us. And she does incense and bells and all of that. And then she tells us to go forth and write. And she gives us a writing prompt. And sometimes they're, describe your disability or some such thing. But this past summer, she said, write about someone who's a positive influence in your life. So I wrote 2 things, because of course, go forth and write. We all dissipate and write. And I wrote 2 things. And the first one I wrote about was my parents. But then I decided that probably a lot of people would be writing about their parents. And we wouldn't want to listen to 15 different, my parents are great. So I wrote another one about Hellcat. And I'd like to read that for you. It says, one of the people who has made a lifelong impact on me as I continue to grow is Helen Hellcat Liam. She was a true visionary who never understood the meaning of the word no. She truly saw potential in everyone. People with twisted bodies that were most often shunned and turned away, or people who spoke with thick, wet tongues, became her most favorite vessels. Like an artist, she molded and shaped. She also knew that at some point, every canvas takes on a life of its own. Her spirit lives on in countless people whose lives have been forever changed by her. And also, if we are generous, some of that spirit is imparted to those we touch as well. Therefore, in some ways, her influence could be eternal. She taught me, both by example and by sometimes straight-out lecture, if I wasn't getting it quick enough, that fear is the thing that holds us back the most, more than our physical, mental, social, emotional limitations. And fear, the unhealthy kind, lives within each of us personally, but only as we allow it to. And thank you. And you might wonder why I go back year after year now that I'm not a kid anymore. But part of the reason is because I get to experience what a typical growth experience might be. Instead of being in a minority of people, I am now in a majority of people. And we don't have to ever think about, well, if I go to the baseball game, how am I gonna get there, and who am I gonna sit with, and what if I have to go to the bathroom? Because someone's already there taking care of that. And we're gonna make it happen no matter how we do it, even if it seems kind of crazy. And that's a really freeing thing, to just be able to decide to live your life and not have to compartmentalize it all the time. And that's something, the ability to live your own life is something that doesn't stop at age 18 or 21 or 75. And that's why campers don't age out of camp. There's never a time when they say, you're too old, and send you on your merry way. We do have campers who are 6, and we do have campers who are 75. And you decide when you stop coming. And that is why there is such an incredible desire for people to experience Jabberwocky. And I'm very blessed that I'm one of the people that has been able to do that. And honestly, truly, if you guys do have questions, I will answer them.
Does anyone have any questions for Faith? Oh,
Yes.
there's one in the
What's your favorite camp memory? Or has
Oh gosh, my favorite camp memory. I would have to say it was the first time I got on a horse, because I could tell it where to go and it would take me there.
I like that.
Instead of having someone push me and they decide which corner I take and which way I go. So that was probably one of my favorites, and probably still would be if I rode, still.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a good reason to
Yeah.
be a favorite. Any other questions, anybody?
How old were you when you first went?
I was 6.
6.
Yep. I left home at 6 and came home 7 because I had my birthday there. So,
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're
It's very
welcome.
inspiring, and we're so happy you're here.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Paul's voice. Thanks, Faith, for the wonderful speech. And knowing Paul would say, that was great, and I'm glad you shared my favorite story. Besides going to Camp Jabberwocky for the last 50 years, Mrs. Lamb, who died in 2011 at the age of 97, wow, helped me in other ways. She was the only one, for example, who encouraged me to attend Southeastern Massachusetts University, now known as UMass Dartmouth. And I also had her support 15 years ago when I started thinking about leaving Fall River and moving to Canton or Sharon. My loving parents were completely against the idea. Mrs. Lamb knew that I would do well and even thrive in Sharon. I know Faith will agree with me by saying that Hellcat did not see people's disabilities, but saw their abilities and potential. Thank you again, that was awesome. Our next speaker is Professor Les Corey, co-founder and president of the Society of Human Advancement through Rehabilitation Engineering, which is known as SHARE. Assistive technology plays an essential role in the lives of people with disabilities. It helps many, including myself, to communicate more effectively, increase our independent living abilities, and makes it possible for us to be productive citizens. Professor Lester Corey was one of the pioneers in the field of assistive technology. In 1981, he teamed up with one of his graduate students, Philip Weil, and transformed a Radio Shack TRS-80 into the first communication device for a nonverbal 24-year-old woman who has cerebral palsy. This made national headlines. Since 1981, SHARE, located at the UMass Dartmouth campus, has been helping 3,600 people with various types of disabilities, including myself, take advantage of assistive technology. It is my privilege to introduce to you Professor Corey.
I'm Les Corey. I'm a retired professor of computer engineering at UMass Dartmouth, and as Paul pointed out to you, one of the co-founders of the Share Foundation, an organization that builds adaptive equipment designed to improve the quality of life of people with disabilities. Over the past 35 years, we've worked with about 3,600 different people. They're located in 38 different states and in 7 different countries. Over that time, we have built about 15,000 pieces of adaptive equipment. And you might say, why would you build 15,000 pieces of equipment if you've only worked with 3,600 people? And that's because 3 things change. People's abilities change, and that requires new technology. People's needs change, and that requires new technology, and technology itself changes. As Paul pointed out, the first system that we built, which I believe was the first system in this universe that enabled a non-speaking disabled person to speak with an electronic voice. This was back in 1981. That's before IBM put its first computer on the market. That's even before Al Gore invented the internet. That machine, by today's standards, would be laughable. We provided that system for a woman in Little Compton, Rhode Island, to enable her to communicate independently for the first time in her life. Prior to that, her means of communication was through a plexiglass board like this one. And she would look at letters of the alphabet, and a person at the other side would follow the motion of her eyes, and as a consequence, she could tell what she wanted to say by simply shifting her eye gaze. Now, kind of surprisingly, today she communicates in exactly the same way. The only difference is that in 1981, there needed to be someone on the other side of this eye board to follow the motion of her eyes. Today, the thing that's on the other side of the eye board is an eye gaze computer system. So by simply sitting in front of this computer and shifting her eye gaze, she can speak with an electronic voice, she can control her computer, she can originate telephone calls, she can send and receive email, all things which were virtually unimaginable back in 1981. So we're very pleased that over the years that technology has evolved. Back in 1981, when we worked with a gentleman whose prime ability was to raise and lower his eyebrows, we built a computer system, but we had to also build an eyebrow switch to enable him to speak with an electronic voice by raising and lowering his eyebrows. Today, you can buy that switch. It's readily available on the market. Today, a lot of the things that we were building over the years, we can today purchase. The Share Foundation, by the way, is a nonprofit foundation, whereas we are at UMass Dartmouth. We're not part of the university, and we're not funded by the university. We're funded entirely by grassroots fundraising and by some contracts, particularly one with the Mass Rehab Commission. We don't charge anything for a consultation. We have a speech-language pathologist on contract. We have an occupational therapist on staff. We have an electromechanical engineer on staff who designs and builds equipment. We have an MIS person on staff who delivers equipment, sets it up, and maintains it in clients' homes. And we have a computer tech on staff, an administrative person, and those are all paid positions, and then there's me, I'm a volunteer. But the services and equipment that we provide are all provided free of charge. We have never charged anyone for anything, but we're beholden to our donors, several of whom are in this room today, including one former speaker, and that's how we managed to be able to provide the equipment that we provide. That eye gaze system, by the way, that I mentioned a moment ago, is a little bit on the pricey side. They're $18,000 a copy. The Share Foundation owns 5 of them, and these are all out on loan to people with disabilities, and I guess I should say we didn't buy any of them. They were all donated to us, and a lot of the equipment that we provide is equipment which is donated as well. Now, whereas Linda in 1981 used a TRS-80 Model 3, which I guess I could still carry today, but with some difficulty. It's big, it's heavy, it's slow, and it was very limited in memory. Today, the kinds of things that we're using are something like this, tablets, which are a lot easier to mount on a wheelchair or to mount anywhere that you'd care to use them. A person who has the ability to use their hands but not the ability to speak might be able to say things using the system simply by touching the touchpad. Now, for example, I once built a system that had 2 big buttons on it, and all it did was to speak the words yes when one button was pressed and no when another button was pressed. And that system cost us several $100s worth of hardware to build it because this was in the early 1980s. Today, if we want a yes-no talker,
yes, please. No, thank you.
well, not very loud, but yes and no, Pat says.
Yes, please. No, thank you.
The system can be customized in that a therapist or an individual within a person's support group can choose from literally thousands of pictures which are within the system, or you can add words to it, and you can customize the system to be useful to a specific person. An individual who is not able to use their hands effectively can still use something like this in scanning mode, where we light up one column at a time, and if the column that the person contains the sentence that the person wants to speak, then they press the switch at that point. Then individual pictures are illuminated, or individual words, and when a sentence or word that a person wants to convey is presented, then you close the switch again. And then the system can speak, or the system can also be used to control things within a person's environment. I'm searching in my pocket to find a controller. Ah, yes, controller. A little on the small side. This device can be used to control things within your home, where things can be anything from opening and closing the drapes, turning the lights on and off, controlling your TV set, changing channel, adjusting the volume, controlling a CD player. I usually tell people to put their hand up when they stop believing me, but other things that you can do with this technology are put water in the cat's dish, put food in the dog's dish, feed the goldfish, open and close the drapes, control the ceiling fan. Yes, all of those things are possible. Lock and unlock your door, all by means of a tiny little thing, and by pressing a button I can turn on the radio.
It is surprising to the extent that Locale has struggled. So a 3rd and 2 for the Pats with 3 seconds to go. Brady drops back. He steps up to the pressure coming, and down he goes. Tom Brady is sacked, run to the turf by Sharon Richardson at midfield. So the Patriots had that last opportunity set up in Jets territory, but unable to capitalize.
Well, I don't know what the score is now, but it was 13-10 Pats a few minutes ago. The things that this little device can control, I'm sending a signal to a wireless controller here on the wall. That is sending a signal through the building's wiring to another module that I plugged in over here, which enables me to turn that light on and off. So you don't need to run a lot of wires from point A to point B as we used to do. Today you can control things just by means of a small device. These can be easily mounted on a wheelchair or can be carried in a person's pocket. The thing that I like about some of these is that you can have a system that says all on, and you can do that with one button, or all off, which you can do with one button, and you can turn on all the lights in the house if that's what you want to do. So, Faith, if you decide you really want the lights on, you can turn them all on, one shot. Or when it's time to go to bed, turn them all off, turn everything off, one press of the switch. Or this can be, again, controlled with a single switch. And the kinds of single switches that we're building today include switches that are controlled by noises that you would make within your throat, like the World War II fighter pilots used as throat mics. You can control systems by raising and lowering your eyebrows, by sipping on a drinking straw, by smiling and frowning, by blinking your eyes, and, well, yeah, getting into the realm of the unbelievable. Yes, you can control a computer today by changing your thought patterns. Do you believe that? It's true. Yes, it's true. That's kind of a solution in search of a problem today, but people can learn to change their emotional state and hence change the frequency of oscillation of their brain waves, which today are very easily measured by means of few electrodes that you would put on a sweatband and wear possibly as the inner band of a cap or just as a sweatband by itself. So you can today control your computer by looking at it, or you can control your computer just by changing your thought patterns. Now, I don't want to leave people with the wrong impression. You don't think of a tree and the computer writes T-R-E-E. Nope, don't work that way. But you can, if you have things presented on the screen sequentially, when the thing that you want is presented, you can select it by changing your thought patterns. Again, we have no users for that technology, because every user that we have has a higher functioning ability, such as blinking their eyes, raising their eyebrows, or perhaps smiling and frowning. One of the things that I like about this technology, and I didn't try this before I got here, but I think it's going to work, is I can turn that light on, but I should also be able to dim it. Yes, I can. And that's obviously not a dimmable fixture, so you can suddenly set the mood if you want to. If you have a friend over and you'd like the room to be in a certain way, you can handle it all very wirelessly. And incidentally, this technology is very inexpensive. The module that's driving that lamp, which has the dimmer in it, cost me $6. The module that we're using on the other wall, which is the one that's receiving the signals and sending those signals out through the building's house wiring, cost about $16. The module that I have in my hand, I think I bought 5 of them for $20. So this is an inexpensive technology. It enables you to do things that we'd only dreamed about just a few years ago. If you needed to ring a bell in the house next door to summon help, you could put one of the modules literally in the house next door. Today, you can not only use this technology, which is known as X10, by the way, but some of you are familiar with a technology called Bluetooth, which enables you, once again, to control things within your environment. So our goal at the Share Foundation is to enable people to live more independently than they might otherwise, or otherwise known as improve the quality of life through the creative application of modern technology. We try to stay abreast of what the latest is in the world of technology and to use those things, those changes, those inventions to make life more pleasant, or more possible for people with disabilities. Some of the folks with whom we are working, I think, really would have very little that they could accomplish if it were not for the availability of modern technology. And our goal is to make it possible for as wide a number as we can of individuals to enjoy access to technology and to be able to do things they might not do otherwise. In some cases, it's a matter of being able to communicate. In other cases, it's a matter of being able to live independently. And in other cases, a matter of being able to provide and to find and to keep employment that they might not otherwise be able to do. In a nutshell, that's what we are doing today at UMass Dartmouth. We'd welcome you to come and visit if you like. I caution you, if you come back a second time, we'll presume that you're a volunteer and we'll probably put you to work. But the first time, you're welcome to come and see the kinds of things that we do. I caution people that you probably won't see many things there that work. because if it was working, it would be out in the field doing what we designed it to do. But you'll see a lot of our colossal failures sitting there on the bench of all the things that we built that we thought might work, or things that perhaps did work in the past, but today have been surpassed by things of a more modern nature. Have you any questions of me? If so, I will take a shot at answering them. And if you don't want to ask them now, I'll be sitting over at that table for a few minutes where we have some brochures that describe our work, and I would be happy to discuss the work that we're doing and perhaps be able to give you some suggestions as to how we might more effectively work with individuals about whom you have an interest. And that, in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, is my story. Thank you for inviting me. I very much enjoyed being here. Paul, congratulations for putting this event together. I really enjoyed being here. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Corey, for that interesting and informative speech. I first met Professor Corey in 1983 when I started attending Southeastern Massachusetts University. He and Phil Weil modified my Radio Shack TSR-80 computer so I can use it more efficiently. Cher has been helping me in other ways, like modifying my new computer, which I purchased a month ago. I am now using a tablet-sized communicator that assists me in communicating. However, Cher didn't get it for me, but it probably indirectly played a role in developing its technology. If you or someone you know could benefit from assistive technology, you can talk to Professor Corey and Ann Shore from MassMatch, a Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission program that promotes the use of assistive technology. And I will add that the things that I went to a meeting a while back because of Paul, where Professor Corey spoke, and I just was amazed at what's available. And I think it's very helpful. I think many people don't even have any idea. So anybody who might be interested really should grab onto Professor Corey today before he leaves, because he really is the backbone of all this stuff. Thank you again. Okay, in closing, we want to thank everyone for coming, and we hope you enjoyed listening to our speakers. Give them another round of applause. We also deeply appreciate the organizations who participated. We hope you found valuable information on services and products that will make your lives and the lives of family members and friends who have disabilities easier and more fulfilling. In closing, I would like to mention that the Commission is working with town officials to get the town hall and other town buildings accessible. More information about this accessibility project will hopefully become available within the next several months. And everyone is welcome to walk around and see the many things that are available. And I guess that's the end. We hope you learned a lot. And thanks, Paul. This was awesome, and you did the whole thing.
Hi, I'm Brian Clark. I'm the director of the Family Autism Center, which is a program of the ARC of South Norfolk. We're one of the 7 autism support centers in Massachusetts. We serve South Norfolk County, including numerous families in the town of Sharon. We do a lot of different programs, recreation and social groups, parent support groups, informational resources, workshops, trainings, all that good stuff. And it's really about getting people with autism and developmental and intellectual disabilities to be a part of their community and to enhance their lives in any way that we can. So our agency has a lot of different things that are going on in addition to the Family Autism Center, and we're happy to let you know a little bit more about that at arcsouthnorfolk.org, and where our offices are located right in Westwood. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Debbie Fradkin, and I'm the Community Relations Manager for HESCO in Sharon. This is Anne Marie Gagnon, our Director of Planning and Development. and we are the local aging service access point for Sharon and 11 other towns in South Norfolk County. And what that means is that we're the designated stop to come and access services. We have a program there. We have different programs, and you can call for information and referral services. If you qualify for services through HESCO, we have care management, homemaking, personal care. Our largest program is our home delivered meals program, otherwise known as Meals on Wheels. We serve over 130,000 meals a year, and we do another 30,000 at congregate meal sites. There's one in Sharon down at Hickson Farms. We also have a caregiver support program. We can arrange for adult day health and transportation as well. Anything you want to add? Okay. Thank you. Give us a call. Yep, give us a call. Our phone number is 781-784-4944, and we can point you in the right direction. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a case coordinator at Network Supported Living Services. We were lucky enough to get the invite from Paul today. Basically, we are a case management service that holds a number of contracts with the state of Massachusetts. Our staff are supported living case managers that provide support to individuals with physical disabilities who are living in their own home independently. So basically, we provide a spectrum of services, anywhere from assistance with managing the personal care program to assistance with medical appointments and transportation, from anywhere also to financial assistance with financial management. So very happy to have a presence here today, and very glad to get the invite from Paul. So thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Layla. I'm from the Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation's Universal Access Program. We've been managing this program for the last 20 years now, and it's been designed to create adaptive outdoor recreation programs for people with disabilities. So we have everything from kayaking to hiking to cycling to our winter programs that are coming up. We have skating programs coming up in Revere, Brockton, and Fall River as well. So we have sit skis, we have walkers, we have yak tracks that we use as well, and we have staff that comes to help. So, you know, these programs are really great. It's designed to get anybody who has a disability from any age group to any sort of disability out in outdoor recreation. So, and that's what we do.
My name is Jenny Doe, and I live in Norwood.
Hello, my name is Shmuley Volsov. I live in Sharon, Massachusetts. I'm a volunteer in the Friendship Circle.
Hi, I'm Chani Minkiewicz. I'm the director of Friendship Circle in Sharon. Friendship Circle is an organization where we buddy up teen volunteers with special needs individuals, and they hang out together for an hour a week, just spending time as friends. We know often special needs individuals struggle forming and maintaining relationships, so we provide the opportunity to have a friend, to spend time with a friend, and to feel what it feels like to be loved by a peer. This year, we're going to be specializing. We're going to conclude the year with an art show. Here's some art from another Friendship Circle in Brooklyn. We recently began creating work for our art show, which will be on May 15th. The special needs individuals will present their artwork to be sold, and they will be empowered as they watch others buy their artwork. Here we have two artwork that was done by two of our special friends. Here are just two samples, and God willing, we'll have more coming.
I'm Maddie Rothstein. I live in Sharon, and I'm the MVP leader, where before you can get a special friend, you can still help out for like a mitzvah project or for fun, and so, yeah.
I'm Maytel Cooper. I'm an MVP volunteer, and I'm doing this for a mitzvah project as well.
We love Friendship Circle. 1, 2, 3.
We love Friendship Circle!
Hi, Hi, my name is Debbie King, and I'm the Library Outreach Coordinator for the Perkins Braille and Talking Book Library. We are the free public library for people who have difficulty reading regular print, and that would include people with vision loss, but it also would include people who have a physical condition, making it difficult to hold a book and to turn the pages of a book, or people with a learning disability. So we're not just there for people who are legally blind by any means. What we offer are large print books, Braille books, but most of our patrons receive audio books. We do serve the entire state because we serve people through the mail, and people can come to our library, but most people get served through the mail. We loan them the player, which is this machine here. The books are now on this wonderful cartridge rather than being on a cassette. The whole book is on this cartridge. The books come in the mail, addressed to the patron in these plastic mailers, and then they simply turn the card over and send it back to Perkins, and there's no need for postage. So the whole idea is to make a library accessible to people who are print handicapped. And in addition to books, we have magazines, we have a newspaper service, we have audio described movies for people who are visually impaired. Audio description means there's a separate soundtrack telling the viewer the key visual elements of a program. And there's a lot more to us, but if you're interested in contacting us or going to our website is www.perkinslibrary.org, or email us at perkinslibrary.org. So thank you for this opportunity.